Hi everyone. Today's episode is on the answers for the common sense questions. There's a total of 15. So some of the answers of these questions you may not have because it's my personal profile. The answers that I will be disclosing can only be known by myself and those who were within my personal circumstance at that point of time. There were 3 separate videos on 3 different mental health assessments, and they were episode 23, 24 and 26. Just for the record, this channel is basically dealing with after the fact crimes or accessory after the fact. These offences are also called mens rea, where the intent or recklessness is suffice. Then we have actus reus. This is the actual damage by another person without lawful excuse or destroys or damages property belonging to another. These reports, talking about the actual mental health assessments, are actually legal documentations of my medical records, but they're also the root cause of the many crises and ordeal that put my life in serious disrepute historically. Okay, we'll get on to it. Question number 1. The question was, how many individuals in public office or staff is involved in making decisions upon the subject? Assessment report dated 8th of July 2009. There was a manager and 2 doctors involved with this report. Assessment report number 2 dated 19th of November 2015 involved one doctor that was on behalf of the employer, and then there was a service manager on behalf of the employer. So in the assessment 1 mental health assessment report number 3, well it actually wasn't a report, it was an oral assessment, which was a meeting. That was dated 4th of February 2016, and that meeting was recorded. So I've got the recording that you heard on the last video clip. And there were the people that were involved from public office in this report was a family GP. Then there was Dr. JJ, who was the person that I had the actual interview with. That's on the recording. He's a male. And then there was Dr. C. And then and she was the one that enforced the act straight after the meeting with Dr. J on the same day. And then there was Dr. Jane, and then there was a judge. So I've just disclosed the actual people in the public office who were actually officially involved in making the final decisions. Okay, so question number 2 was, how many public officers were detected in the whole report for each assessment? Okay, so report number 1, 8th of July 2009, and we're rewinding backwards. So we're talking about the whole report in a whole, everyone that was involved leading up to the actual report that were in public office at this time. So there was a manager, my employer, there was 2 doctors, then there was the family GP, then there was an EPA, there was a counsellor detected on the actual report. They were actually paid sessions from 2003 onwards. So that's confirmation that I was a union member, because they were actually paid sessions through the union. And so I saw the counsellor from 2003 onwards in regards to the workplace bullying. So she's noted in the report. Now also there was that paragraph where I picked up when I said that there disclosed about the 3 that I'd send out vile threats to 3 work colleagues. That was in the actual report. So there was a union delegate involved at this point of time, because he was the one who advised me and encouraged me of what to do and how to deal with the workplace bullying. So there was, if a proper investigation went into these, who were these 3 public, work colleagues that I was having issues with at this point in time, they would also pick up that there was a union representative at this time. So the union organizer was aware of this time too. So these are all the things that that was on the documentations, but the extra information is only being disclosed because it's my personal profile. So also other things to consider and important factors surrounding this point of time in regards to the subject. And I mean, you only know because I'm telling you, but if it was someone different taking on the case, don't know anything about the individual, they want to find out as much as they can in regards to the person's set of circumstance at this point of time. So at this time, I was actually a volunteer as a manager for a hip hop group at this time. I sort of kind of joined the group at the end of 2009, but by this time I was, slowly getting very much involved at this time. And this hip hop group was called the Unison Hip Hop Group. I was also active in public meetings in my local church at this time, so I'm very well known to many in the public. And the church my local church that I was a member, and basically it was my home because I grew up in it. I was regularly involved in everything and all the public meetings, so everyone will remember me and know who I am out in the public. I was also regularly going to the gym and walking, but I think at this time, 2009, I was more into the walking before I officially started doing the gym, as I already disclosed, because of the safety issue for me. But I was regularly doing all this 3 to 5 times a week as part of my everyday routine. These are the kind of things that makes a massive difference of the person's situation or circumstance, and even speaks volume about their character and their personality. And I was also very much a routine person and a homebody. Okay, report number 2, dated 19th of November 2015. There was a doctor hired on behalf of the employer, and then there was a service manager who actually signed the form before the unfair dismissal. But going back, there were other people involved in this situation. There were that were involved behind the scenes of this, leading up to that final decision. There was a union organizer at this time, and also a union lawyer. Also involved to do with me, there was a general manager, and there was a lawyer for the employer. There was also a senior human resource HR manager at this time. Yeah, so all these people were all involved in regards to what has happened to me historically. Now the report, the actual assessment on the 4th of February 2016, there was no report written. It was an oral assessment that was on the CD. There was a family GP involved. In fact, this family GP has been involved since the last report, which was in 2009. She's in there in that report. She was my family GP at that time. But in saying that, I've had other family GPs before her. In between, because of my circumstance, I moved around quite a bit. But this family GP is the same family GP that was in the report in 2009. She's the same family GP that wrote the letter to let the employer know that I wasn't on any mental health medication to support my case at that time. So she's this same family GP who referred me to this pre-arranged appointment on the 4th of February on or about 11 to 11:30 a.m. So the actual so there was Dr. JJ involved, and then there was another public public officer, and there was a nurse in this meeting, in this actual meeting. Then there was Dr. C, who enforced the actual act, and then there was a security that accompanied her to enforce that act, and I refused and walked to my car. That he because he's a public officer, he's involved in there, like he was security. And then there was the 2 police officers who later on that evening came to my home and arrested me. So they were public officers, and accompanied with a mental health services nurse on the same day. This is later on in the evening. And then with the same incident surrounding the same set of circumstance at this time, on the 5th of February, there was a meeting with Dr. Jane and 3 students at this meeting. And this same Dr. Jane had a meeting with my family on the 9th of February, in the morning of 9th of February, where she saw members of my family. And then she was also at the same court hearing on the same day, following that same day later on in the afternoon around about 2 p.m. So she was in the court hearing. Also other public office people, or I'm used to public servant, the old terminology, but they call them public officers. That's why I get a little bit confused, because I'm used to the old terminology, but they're called public officers now according to the legislation. So there was a judge in this case, there was a deputy registrar in this case, there was a court security in this case. There was a mental health specialist lawyer, and then there was a nurse that I had a talk with an ex-colleague. I think it was on a Saturday, which would have been the 6th. He came to visit, and then we had a talk. So she was involved in this case, and the civilians in this case, the people that supported me or had something to do with me during this period of time, was my ex-boyfriend and my mother, my daughter, a family friend who at the time was my son's girlfriend, my brother-in-law, and my sister. So these all information are actually really, 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 really important, especially for something, historical, because these are the kind of things that people who are investigating into your profile, if anything's happened to you after the fact, these are the kind of information that they will be looking for. But it's very, very difficult to ascertain this sort of information if if the victim has been subject to cyberbullying, because the evidence is contaminated usually. So question number 3, who is allowed to have access to your personal profile? Okay, the answer is still the same as far as I know. No one. But then this answer is a case-by-case basis. Legally, no one is allowed to access your personal profile without your consent, unless for good reasons, according to the laws. There must be sufficient evidence to support the facts to enforce a search warrant. Okay, so authorization by law is according to the legislation, a body corporate which is corporated in your country. The Department or Minister of the Crown or organisation establishes and determines a proceeding of purpose, principles and matters of general application. The only time when someone is allowed in your personal profile without a search warrant is when you ring call centres or whoever is handling your case or managing your case at the time you have any interaction with you know, the companies, agencies or organisation. For example, courts, banks, anything to do with your personal profile. That's what I'm talking about. And why? Well, obvious reasons. There's got to be laws surrounding your privacy to protect you, you know, from being subject to a scam or something like I've been subject to historically. That's why breaches are really, 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 really serious. Yeah, so these are the times also, like if, you know, if there's an investigation, if there's some kind of reason of belief of, you know, serious like fraudulent stuff going on, you know, like serious fraud that comes under indictable offences, then that's when a search warrant is, you know, is usually used. But I'm used to people knocking on the door if, you know, if I've done something wrong, but no one's done that to me. So as far as I'm concerned, yeah, no one's has advised me I've done something wrong, because I know I haven't. I'm not perfect, but legally no one has used any warrant to let me know that I'm under some kind of being investigated for something fraudulent, whether it's in my past or recently. So, but as far as I know, that's about the only time a search warrant is usually, or a hardcore investigation is is admissible. Also, you know, in case, say, I died or got murdered, you know, that all that kind of inquiry, that's when all these, you know, profile, whatever is on your profile becomes your voice to let, you know, whoever is investigating what happened to you. So basically that's you know, after the fact, you're actually reading somebody's circumstance after they're gone. So it's after the fact, and so whatever information is on the legal documentation speaks volume. So authorization into your personal profile is justifiable, like I already mentioned, in serious cases like indictable incidents or any form of criminal inquiry. Okay, all right, so here's a tip for the day. The companies you ring now are recording everything you say and all your private conversations with them. Now, for evidence, you need evidence if, you know, if you're not happy about something. The system, like for me, it took a while for me to get used to the system, and basically really shocked and appalled of how dangerous it is. And now my case can actually proven, you know, it's like it's supporting to prove as a public member of how dangerous it is, because you talk to a machine and you're not recording anything, and they're recording everything you say. But I know from my own personal profile, people have actually deleted. So people are actually committing the crime and then deleting it. So you know, when I got lured into this scam, or I don't know what the opposition want to call it, you know, things like this with technology, and knowing the danger around them, and you know, in human nature, because yeah, so I really yeah, quite like, I was blown away with this new system. But I was thinking of more like, okay, you doing that, but what about me? What about my safety? What about my protection? Do I just sit like a sitting duck and just let people steal off me? Well, basically that's what happens when your privacy's gone and subject to a scam, and you can't do anything about it, and the system doesn't work. But I suggest, you know, that you record it. So that's what I've done. I've done this for a long time when you know, out of my own security, like, I want to be protected too. So I've gone ahead and recorded my conversations historically, as support of evidence should anything go wrong. And you are within your right. It's actually against the law to actually record somebody without their consent. It's not even admissible in court, as far as I know. But the danger now, if you're subject to a scam and they've stolen your identity, and they've, you know, got everything about you, these people are actually recording it as evidence to use it secretly. So, you know, that's not fair. You know, you could do all kinds of things, and, you know, be, you know, fussy about how things are done, and be accurate, but then somebody secretly has stolen your personal information and can use it without you knowing afterwards. But yeah, so that's something like thinking outside the box is what you need to do in situations like that. You got to think about, what am I going to do? What happens if this thing backfires? What have I got to back myself up? Especially if I know I'm telling the truth, that's my word against them. So that is the downfall with the technology. And unfortunately, they have deleted some of the evidence in my personal profile, and I can prove it. But in saying that, regardless, doesn't matter how long the, you know, the issue or the incident happen, it's not hard to find the evidence to back you up. But, you know, it takes somebody with, you know, expert, to find out all that information. But what I'm trying to get you to think outside the box is you taking responsibility of your own welfare, of your own self. Yeah, so why? How do you know? Here's an example why. How do you know you're talking to the intended person? You know, the phones can be diverted, and they are. Yeah, you know, you could be set up, you know, right in where whoever's trying to take you down. You know, everyone you talk to, everywhere you go, it's all their people, and then they just micromanage your whole life. And I believe that's what's happened historically to me, on and off. So yeah, so that's the other thing you got to ask yourself. It's not a very pleasant situation to be in, but it's very hard. You know, it's very hard to prove yourself if you're in that sort of circumstance. So yeah, and these are what the scammers are actually doing. They're actually trapping their victims, and then they're micromanaging them, setting them up. And it's really dangerous, really seriously dangerous. So yeah, so that's the reason why. And also you'd need it if you got a complaint, you know, like, you know, that's what the police is for. you need that evidence to prove a wrongdoing or something's going on with you, a breach. So you need to take supporting evidence with your facts. And so that's another reason why. And when is it not okay for anyone to access your personal profile? Well, according to the law, and I'll read the quote, nothing in this section gives any person the right to be given access to any personal information about that person that is held by a public trust. This means also in their capacity as a trustee, basically talks about them being the employer, or any other fiduciary capacity. No one is allowed to go into your personal profile without any good reason. They automatically, and this is another reason why, is because they also automatically become suspects during a criminal inquiry. So the agencies, the companies and the organisations has to explain why they've deleted the profile, or why is this information incorrect, because if there's proof of that company or organisation or individual as a party to the crime, they become co-offenders. So or they become either an accessory to the crime after the fact. So that's something to think about. People don't think about things like this. So question number 4. What steps can I take to have actual access to my profile, and when can I access my profile? All right, so you need to find out the legislation, the laws, the rules, the clause that gives you the authority to have access to your personal profile, and make the request in writing. If no satisfactory outcome, you're entitled to pursue a civil case to have the documentations legally amended. If times have changed, they have a time frame for everything. It's law that they do, and they have to meet that time frame. But I have found that some people are doing their own thing just because they own a company. They do their own thing, but it's the laws that the actual public abide to, and that's what they're accountable to if anything goes wrong. I know recently I have asked for something, and they give you 20 working days now. And even like with the court system, there's a time frame for everything. There's a reason for that, is to avoid, somebody like myself from being blacklisted or anything going wrong. But, so you can check the legislation for time frames. If you can't find the time frames, ask them to confirm it by writing, because you need all that kind of information when you decide to lodge a complaint about how your case is being managed. So you need proof for everything. Number 5, what steps can I take if I find something that is on my personal profile that is not true? Find the law, the rule, clause that allows you to make that request and have your profile amended to its correct wording. Basically the same thing I've already answered. And if you don't have a satisfactory outcome, you can lodge a complaint. And the other step, you can go to the Ombudsman or Privacy Commissioner, and there is another level. If you don't know, you ask them. They have to put it in writing. What I have found with what I've gone through, I've been absolutely, concerned about, when you're targeted and someone's following you 24/7, somebody is sabotaging everything, and either someone's telling them what to say to you, or they already know who you are, and they give you misleading information, or they lie to you, or they're making their own laws up. And I've had people tell me information, and I'll look up the laws like, That's not true. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that's why it's important to know these sort of things may seem small, but if you're targeted, you know, they'll just micromanage you where you don't want to go, in a path you don't want to go, and you have no control of it. Okay, number 7, focusing on the mental health assessments that I've just disclosed, where in this case I'm the subject. Was the subject on any medication, and if so, what kind of medication? All right, so on the 8th of July 2009, no, the answer is no, I was not on any mental health medication. But however, I was on sleeping pills on and off because I was under tremendous stress back then with the workplace bullying, the work condition I was subject to. No, it wasn't family violence because I wasn't in a relationship, but it was definitely everything that I said, cyberbullying or some secret public exploitation. So I can confirm I was under stress because of the working condition and what I was subject to. So there was, you know, the odd time I'd gone to the doctors and she'd give me sleeping pills to help me sleep and cope with, you know, what I was going through. But I'm not a sort of person who wears my emotions on my sleeve, you know, like I'm not a drama queen. And if I do, if I let you know that I'm not feeling that great, it's because, you know, it's usually on a one-on-one basis, and it's very rare I let anyone know how I feel, because I'm just one of these people, you know, who is able to control my emotions. Yeah, so that's me at that point of time. And on 19th of November 2015, no, I was not on any mental health related medication, and that was confirmed by a medical certificate by my family GP for the actual investigation at that time. But I was on high blood pressure tablets. And on the 4th of February 2016, this is when I went for the actual assessment. The answer is no. And I can confirm for the last 2 years I have not been on any medication for anything other than Panadol, pain relief, you know, when you get a, you know, headache here and there, and stuff like that. Nothing new. But yeah, I haven't even been on any high blood pressure tablets for over, rough estimate, 2 years. Because I just wasn't even good at taking medication, never have, and I hate it. Yeah, so I will leave this video at the. I've decided to cut to do this episode in 2 parts, because of the answers. You know, it's really important that that I don't miss anything. And if anyone's been at court, you'll understand where I'm coming from. I mean, even court cases, they take ages, they take forever sometimes, because, you know, you got to be thorough with your information. You got to make sure that your information's correct. And so I have split this video up. So I'll see you in the next video when I answer question number 8 to 15.